How do we make magic moments more welcoming and inclusive for first-year staff and campers?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
Running camp comes with enough moving parts. UltraCamp keeps registration, payments, and communication in one place so you can spend less time juggling systems and more time building an incredible camp experience. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker.
If you're still making camp schedules and spreadsheets, you know how draining it is and how often mistakes slip in. Enter Camptivities. It's made by camp people for camp people to save time, cut errors, and make camp run smoother. Be the change your camp needs. Explore smarter scheduling today at camptivities.com. Hello, Camp Mavericks, and welcome to the Camp Hacker podcast, brought to you by UltraCamp, Camptivities, and the Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic. My name is Chris Hudson. I'm a summer camp consultant working with camps around issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, staff training, leadership, management, and a whole bunch of other things.
And I'm Travis Allison. I am a summer camp consultant specializing in helping camps and camp leaders create ways to give themselves space for more creative, big picture thinking.
And I'm Kim Aycock, and I'm in the business of developing emerging leaders with those skills that robots can't do through the camp experience. And I'm also a camp consultant with about just about anything camp.
That is awesome. What a great intro, Kim. Thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, it's been a long time, but not really.
Yeah. Yep.
Great to have you here.
It is really great.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into the topic, I just want to remind folks that it's helpful to us if you write reviews. Most of the apps that you're listening to us on, if you're listening on your phone, will have a link to just write a review. That just helps us to know what we're doing right and know some bigger, better stuff to be thinking about for the future. So you can also do that at ratethispodcast.com/camp for CampHacker in particular. So we're excited to have Kim back. We're going to be talking, as Chris said, about making moments inclusive for first-year staff and campers. And I think one of the things that comes to mind for this, especially when Chris said magic moments in the intro, is that sometimes the things that people who know camp feel are magic are not all that inclusive for people who've never been there before. And we tend to make those kind of things just sort of an inside joke that you have to be there for a long time to get the relevance of. But the three of us are very passionate about making sure that people feel welcome and included. And sometimes I feel like for Camp Hacker, if every Camp Hacker episode could be summed up by saying community, intentionality, systems. Just like, there we go. There's the whole show. But we will spend a little more time on it today. Kim, what do you think about helping staff in particular? Let's start there and we'll move to campers before the end.
Sure. So I have to say, Travis and Chris, that with Project Real Job through the American Camp Association, we've really been looking hard at this over the last year or two. And it was, I have to say, very eye-opening because I thought I was one of those people who was very welcoming and thought, you sort of think of the small details until somebody else points out, like, oh, wait, there's other things that we should be thinking about. And I'm going to tell you a story about a fantastic person that I got to meet a couple years ago. Saw a post online, which led to a phone call, which has now led to working together. This young emerging leader, now very professional leader, was experiencing homelessness in high school, got herself to college, and she's sitting in her college, dorm room or something, and she starts thinking, and she realizes, she's like, wow, I have all of my basic needs met right now. I know where I'm sleeping. I know where my food's coming from. I have support on campus. I have a job, and that's going to run out when the summer comes. And so what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? And so she starts Googling like summer jobs, no camp. She didn't know about camp yet. Summer jobs with housing. And that's how she found camp. And just through her story about the things that she thought about that I just had never really crossed my mind was pretty powerful. And so just even thinking about just barriers that we maybe don't intentionally put those things, up for people, but they end up being barriers and we don't even know it, right? And so just through her story, learning about how like your packing list, there might be some things on your packing list that staff just can't afford to buy. Or if somebody is truly couch surfing, they may be bringing a whole bunch of extra stuff with them. And so where do we put that? Do we have a room at camp that we could actually help store some of those things? What about just like even training requirements? Some of them, we want them to get their first aid and CPR before they get to camp, or their lifeguarding or this training or that training. And what if they don't have the money to spend on it now, but we say, oh yeah, we're going to reimburse you later. But the list goes on and on and on. And so it's pretty, like I said, it was pretty powerful to listen to Jordan's story and to really unpack that. And now think more intentionally about the needs that staff might be coming with that we don't even know.
Yeah.
And I want to point out, Travis, like you said, intentionality. Be really clear about this. Not every camp can be everything to everybody. And I think when it comes to this, we have to be really clear about what we can handle, how flexible we can be, and make sure that we communicate that to people. And of course, in a world like today, we want to be very careful about how we express that. But I think it should be expressed that, like Kim, like you said, like let's say there isn't a lot of storage space, right, at the camp. Maybe you're renting from somebody else. Someone is counseling. They come with a car, a truck. Maybe if you cannot store that stuff, if you really can't make it happen, then you need to express that and not invite someone in to then give them a situation that is less than acceptable. Does that make sense? I find camps, they say yes to a lot of things, but then don't actually prepare the way. And that's what I'm saying about being intentional, like thinking about, and honestly, granted, I used to get this in school all the time, that I don't build systems. I start everything from square one. I've gotten a lot better at this over time, but it's like, yes, camp is something that happens every year, but I don't think that necessarily excuses us from having the conversation such as, what are young people like today? A lot of the camp leaders I work a lot with staff issues, especially with Gen Z. Like a lot of camp leaders who are boomers or Gen X, they just don't understand why the kids just can't do it. Why can't they just do it? I just did it. I just figured it out. These kids are different. Like, did you sit down at the beginning of camp and ask yourselves, how are young people different than they were 30 years ago when I started doing this? It's just the opening to intentionality. What do people need and what are they presenting?
And even the job of camp counselor is radically different than it was 10 years ago. A great frustration of mine. I always get so mad when I hear old people, and I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm now and a grandfather, so I'm now there. But when people say, well, when I was a kid, we just did this thing. And I keep thinking, well, that's not done these days, because so many people of your generation died or got hurt doing riding a bike with no helmet on, or riding in a car with no seatbelts and standing up in the middle of the hump in the back seat with your hands on both seats. Like, people died from that. That's why we don't do it anymore. And so it relates to camp in so many ways. Like, it's just a different job than it used to be.
Well, and I think also just thinking about, like, people are starting their recruiting and hiring seasons, at this time of year. And so just sort of how can we help staff hit the easy button so that we're, again, not putting barriers up. And I get really, you want to get my blood boiling, Travis?
Yeah.
People tell me they're still,
I want to hear about it. I don't want to.
Still, requiring somebody to fill out a full application before they even talk to them. And so that is just, you're losing out on so many different people who just don't have the time to do that. They, or thinking that it has to be perfect or all of those kinds of things. And do we really need a t-shirt size, before we know that somebody's been hired, or a driver's license number or whatever? No, we don't. And so just making it super short and simple, and making it, hey, we're so excited that you landed on, at this spot. We just want to get to know a few little things about you before we proceed, right? And so just making even just the language in those little short interest forms can be so welcoming. And then one of the things that we are thinking, I've been talking to different camp directors about, and for the camps that I work with in Wisconsin, we are really being intentional just because the hiring process has so many little steps that have to be taken. So how can we make that easier so they understand like what the process is? So we're going to do 3 different things. We're creating a little graphic that we can send to them. So it's very simple, like this is step 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. It'll be in an email. And then we're also sending videos to give like the handoff. And so I learned this from somebody else, but the way they did it wasn't possible at the time of the season that we were doing this. But it's like we have 2 people interviewing, and then they get handed off to somebody else who does all the onboarding stuff, like checks the references and all of that. So when the people interview, they're going to send their people, if they want them to continue, they're going to send them a video that the person who's the next person in line has created and introducing themselves. Hey, I'm going to help you with this next step. This is what it looks like. This is what I'll be asking you for. And then when the next handoff comes, that person sends a video and so on. Plus you get to meet the different people. You get to put a name with a face. And to me, that's super welcoming and really intentional. So I'm really excited to see how this plays out. So
that's super cool. That's really
that ties
cool
into
to
something
see
that I think about often. I've talked about it on the show before, but I think when kids arrive at camp, when new staff arrive at camp, they should know solidly, they should have been taught or had access to one ritual or song or chant that happens on the first day, so that there's one of those moments that they can join in. They're like, oh, I know this one because I watched the video about it. They should know the name and the face of at least one person who is not the person that interviewed them.
Mm-hmm.
So you should make some connection between them and one other, so that there are tiny little safety nets that don't take a lot of time. Like, how hard is it to teach one of your songs or chants via video, and then just make sure it happens every day on every session on the first day? That level of thoughtfulness means that people arrive with tiny little pockets of safety in an overwhelming, nerve-wracking experience of moving to a new camp, or getting on the bus for your first day of being a camp counselor, and there's a ton of kids and a ton of staff, and you're riding on your way to wherever your day camp is. Those are hard moments, and if you have the little pocket of safety, it makes a lot more possible.
I totally agree. I actually was on a website last night, and it was a day camp, and they have on there, like, as soon as you go there, on the top little bar, it says, this is our camp song, like so it's like, it's there. So like, so that's saying, hey, we want you to be part of this community. We feel, we're being intentional enough so that the song is there so you can also learn it as a person who's joining this community. We did that for when we started our WhatsApp staff group last year. We sent a video, a welcome video, and we have a welcome song. And so yours truly sang the welcome song to start the whole process.
Love that.
And I can't even tell you, we sent it we didn't send it out widely in a group chat because we hadn't created the group chat yet, but we sent it individually. And I can't even tell you how many people messaged me after and said, can you please send me the name or the words to that song so that I can practice it? So I have the words in front of me. And I was just like, wow, that is such a simple thing, but yet it made them feel like now they have something that they can grab onto, that they're joining this community, they're feeling part of it. So
yeah.
And it's simple, right? It's not a big thing.
Is that song public, Kim? Can we put it in the show notes?
I don't know if it is. I'll have to do some digging.
All right.
I hate to be this person.
All right.
I hate to be this person. I am the kind of person who it's like, I want all the information. Any information you give me about anything, send it to me, and I will read all of it. And when I arrive, I will know all of it. I've always been that kind of person. What I found over the years, a lot of people are not. So especially with our staff, like, we have been trying to be flexible in the way that we reach out to people, the way that we communicate, the way that we do training, all of that. But what I find is that, like, Kim, like, providing people with a lot of that information, like videos to watch and stuff to read, people just don't do it. Now, that's always true across the board. But what I really want to do is if we're making these attempts, if we're making these strategies to be more inclusive, right? To speak to more people rather than the way that we were doing it, how do we make it more effective? You know what I mean? Like this has been this has been what I've been trying to figure out for a while now. Cause we're like, all right, so, we used to communicate with people only through email. Now we do it through text message. Now we do it through Slack, now we'll do it through WhatsApp. We'll do whatever you want to do. And at the end of the day, I'm like, are we not missing the mark? Because people are still coming in with this look of wonder, like, I don't understand what's going on here. Like, what are we missing? You know?
But we'll never get like even there are lots of people who won't like like the first day when the kids arrive, everything that happened in the last 8 to 10 days just sort of washes out, and people get panicky, and then
Yeah.
you have those people who
Trauma
just sort
response.
of
Yeah.
pull people into the traditions and the way to do
Mhm.
things, and then people start to remember. But this is just a classic camp communication problem
Mhm.
because camp is so complicated. It's complicated when you're a parent, it's complicated when you're a staff member. And what you do when you're teaching complicated things is that you repeat them a lot,
Mhm.
you highlight the most important, and you use different mediums. And so, yes, you should send out a PDF with your staff handbook, but then you should spend the next 6 months breaking out little pieces of that staff handbook, delivering it in an audio format, or make a video, or a drawing video, or something you move, or pieces of paper run on a whiteboard to show all of those things, because your life as a camp director is so much easier when people understand those things a little better than they did
Mhm.
last
Mhm.
year. So if you can set up back to systems, if you can set up the system to think the things that staff have the most problems with and the things that are most important to you as an administrator, then reinforce those with lots of different things. This is like one of the things I wrote down for is that every camp has their own lingo, and a lot of camps I know include like a camp dictionary. But when you
Mhm.
bury a camp
Yes.
dictionary on a page 47 of an 80-page PDF, no one reads that. But if you break it out, or you have just creative, again, multimedia, if you have staff who do like those pronunciation videos you see on YouTube where people will break it down, it's like, here's what the Irish word neva is spelt like and sounds like. And if you did that with a whole bunch of different talking heads from your camp, then people would be engaged in that kind of thing. Same as getting a video with the welcome song is a much more engaging way than you saying, and every day on the first day that kids arrive, we sing the welcome song.
Also, I think it's important, you know, I just injected that because I wanted you to say that. But also, I think it's important because I wanted to make that point for everybody. But also, I think it's important that the effort is made. It's not
Yes.
so much like 100% you're going to read all this stuff, but I think the effort is made to be like, okay, here's a video you can watch. Here's an auto recording. Here's a link. Here's a PDF. Like, I think that is important for people to see that, okay, this is a possibility for me. think about I think about this a lot because I've been doing this for a long time. How many people would have been successful at this, but we just closed them out because we didn't communicate to them in a way that spoke to them, right?
Yep.
How many people
100%.
how many people we didn't take into the industry because they were dyslexic and everything was
Mhm.
written, How many people, how many how many more lives could have been changed if we had been more inclusive, right? There are some great counselors out there who are not great at reading. There's great counselors out there who are not great at listening. Like you don't tell me anything. You have to write it down, right? So if I sit in a 2-hour lecture about emergency procedures, great. When the lightning storm starts, you better ask somebody else because I can't take information in that way. I've got to see it. And I'm just saying, like, these efforts are so helpful in bringing more skilled people into the industry because it's not any one thing. Something you said earlier, Travis, the camp counselor job is so different. To think, I mean, vaguely, we were like raising children, but now it's so much more targeted as we understand social emotional learning. And camp is the space where that sort of thing happens. And we've enunciated that explicitly in a way that we didn't in the 90s and the early 2000s. So
Mhm.
I love that.
Well, and I think also like we get stuck in thinking, there are great camp counselors and great camp staff who don't go to college or don't go to,
Exactly.
a
Yes.
program like that. And so sometimes I think we sort of think that that's the only place that we should be looking for these folks. I remember one time asking my nephew, who didn't go to a 4-year college, and I said, so Chase, where would I find someone like you, to work at camp? And so he, of course, it's more on, at that time, he is not on social media anymore, but at that time it was, social media. He's like, I would be looking on social media, but you're not going to find me, in a campus cafeteria or something to that effect, So yeah, I just
And
think.
I'm sorry, Kim, go ahead.
Well, I was just also going to say, I think we also have to think about, I can remember one of the first people I hired when I was an associate director at a girls' camp in North Carolina on the other side of the state. I can remember interviewing this person in September. And then I'm guessing she probably didn't hear from me again until April, And so, some staff have a really long runway to camp and some have a very short runway to camp. And so just thinking about, where is their entry point into the cycle of where we are, and to keep that in mind as we're, because the more information and sort of that communication, that connection, that community, that's how we don't lose those people, right? Where they get oh gosh, I think maybe I should start looking for something else, or this doesn't seem to be the same kind of offer that it was, when I interviewed a couple months ago. I haven't heard anything from them. So what were you going to say, Chris? I'm curious.
I want to, when I first saw this topic, creating magic moments, I was like, oh my God. I'm on record saying this. When we refer to what happens at camp as magic, it bothers me because it sort of obviates the need to explain what we're actually doing. So at first I was like, oh God, what are we talking about? Then I was like, oh, okay, I get it. But to that point, I think what is magical and impressive to people changes over time. And I think, what am I trying to say here? It would do us a lot of good to actually be specific about how we want staff, and then campers, which we can talk about, how we want staff to feel when they're there. Like, what kind of support are we giving them, and not just falling back on calling it magic. We want to make magic moments. What does that mean? Moments that educate, moments that elevate, moments that support. Like, what exactly are we trying to give to the staff? Because also that could be part of the marketing. Telling young people that they have to experience the camp magic, especially in this crowded marketplace for things that, 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds can do with their summer. I just don't think it's specific enough, because what we are actually offering is super valuable. And if we could just spell it out, that would be great. So what kind of magic moments are we trying to make for staff? Like, where you're going to gain new skills. We always say at Camp Highlight, we are going to introduce you to your best friends for the rest of your life. That's a huge selling point for young people. And it's true. Like, I think we're going to have the second camp marriage, like people who have met there. That's crazy to me, right? But if we're specific about what magic moments are, I think that becomes part of the marketing as well as part of the training.
And I think magic moments are different for different people, right?
Exactly.
And as you were saying, different people need different ways of receiving information. So that, to me, that a little light went off in my head, and I was like, you know what? We need to include that in our interview. Like, in what way do you like to be communicated with? What's your
How do you learn best?
Asking those simple questions, that also makes them feel like they're valued, they're appreciated, they're being heard, those kinds of things.
And also, what are you looking for? Like, when you think about what this experience could be, what do you think it's going to be? Like, what do you think it's going to be like? What can we do? That back and forth with people about what the experience is going to be and being responsive to it, I think is something that, I don't know if a lot of camps are doing that. And to that, and also I say this all the time, I think just camp marketing writ large is poor. When I look at camp in popular culture, there's not a lot of great reflections of it. Usually it's about a bunch of oversexed young people who are not paying attention to the children they're hired to be in charge of. I think it's important to ask people, what do you want to get out of this experience? Like, what can this experience be for you? Just so we can make sure we're all on the same page. Because I think if you've never been to camp before, the idea of what happens at camp is murky, specifically because we keep using terms like camp magic. So I think it should be a lot more sort of back and forth communication about, what is this space? What is this space for you? This is what we can provide. This is what's on offer.
When I think also in terms of support, I think sometimes camp directors sort of get like, we shouldn't have to support our staff, or we,
Yeah.
like they should be able to do this on their own kind of thing, or like, especially if somebody's been a camper and transitioned over to counselor, I find it just fascinating that magical like moment in time when you make the switch, like all of a sudden, yes, it's a job, and they're still emerging leaders who are developing, and their brain isn't fully developed until, 25 or beyond, right? And so like, it's not that we still care about them. And so I'm going to use an example that I just really caught me off guard in yoga, because I like to do yoga a lot, and we have a block. And I rarely would take a block because I always felt like it was a crutch. And I was like, I should be able to do this without this block.
The kiss
And
of
I
death in
wouldn't- and
yoga.
I wouldn't take it. And then the instructor would just hand me it anyway. And I'm like, okay, I guess I need this block, this block. But when the instructor used the term support instead of crutch, she said, this is not a crutch, this is a support. And it had 3 different levels. Like, you can turn the block in 3 different ways. There's a low, a medium, and a high level. So you can choose the level of support that you need. And then at some point you can get rid of the support because you can do it on your own, kind of thing. And that was just an aha moment for me. I was like, wow, what do we do at camp that we, could give people support in ways that make sense to them so that they can then eventually do it on their own, whether it's campers or staff, right? So
It's such an echo of that. Well, it's hard for me, so it should be hard for you. It's just such an echo of like almost a hazing culture. Like, I was really uncomfortable when I got here, so you should be really uncomfortable. And I think that is such bullshit. It just enrages me when people say, well, camp counseling was always hard. I've already covered that and why that makes me mad. But there's a lot of that stuff along the way that is implied in tone and just the way we refer things. It's implied in some of the teasing and things. That's why I think it edges on hazing, where we sort of center out people for not knowing a thing in the camp culture. And that's incredibly negative.
Yeah.
And is not what an intentional camp does. Intentional camp is looking for all of the places that we're making assumptions, but we're not only us looking for all the places that we're making assumptions, we're asking our staff. We've had a lot of, you need to communicate with them about it, but we're asking ourselves, what are the assumptions that we made about this job that you didn't know? And I always advocate for camps having a separate set of end of summer surveys for first year families than the rest of the families, because there's so much to learn. And one of the questions I'm always pushing for is, what do you know now that you wish you knew on the first day of camp? And if we do that with staff as well, if we could do staff surveying, but really hit those first year staff after they've been here for 2 weeks and just say, what did you think you needed to know that we didn't tell you? And then you can start to make a list and improve that year over year to make that, just to make that easier. One of the things I think is incredibly powerful to be able to say somebody is parents, campers, staff, etc., is to say, because of what you suggested, we're making this change. And because of what you put in your survey, because of what you mentioned to your head counselor, we are making this change. And even if you're a first-year staff member who's 10 days into being a camp counselor, and somebody in senior leadership came up and say, I thought this was really insightful, what you said, we're changing things because of what you did.
The buy-in, the way that person feels, they're like, oh, I'm a part of this.
It's
like,
oh,
I'm not just here. Oh, I am this camp. Got it.
Yeah.
It's so powerful to give that to people, like, oh yeah, we can change that. It's oof. And it empowers staff to give their opinions about how things can be more efficient, which I love. Our staff is always empowered to come to us and we're quick to change things. We're like, yeah, sure, we could try that, because we could always go back. But sometimes it doesn't always work to our benefit, but what it actually does do is, for that staff member, they're like, okay, now I'm just going to come here for life. Right? The buy-in is, you can't calculate the cost of that. Even if you're inefficient for 1 year, you can't calculate the cost of having a staff member that you don't have to train again, and then who could possibly train others in the future, just because you were a little flexible and listening to them. freaking fantastic.
Exclusive for CampHacker listeners, grab UltraCamp's free guide, The Parent Experience Checklist. Practical steps to simplify registration and keep families coming back. Download at ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker. Parents don't want clunky processes, and you don't want constant phone calls. UltraCamp helps you simplify registration with mobile-friendly forms, offer payment plans that work for your families, reduce calls and emails with automated reminders, and keep parents engaged with built-in communication tools. UltraCamp helps you create smooth, stress-free parent interactions so your team can focus on camp, not customer service. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker.
If you're still building camp schedules and spreadsheets, you know how much time it eats up and how easily mistakes sneak in. Camptivities changes that with scheduling software that saves hours and ensures every camper gets the experience you promised. Whether it's group or camper scheduling, different schedules every day, or you just want to break your own rules to give a deserving camper a popular activity, Camptivities handles it all. With auto scheduling and over 70 easy-to-use reports, you'll reduce errors, keep staff happy, and run a smoother program. Be the change your camp needs. Start today at camptivities.com. Don't wait until the new year. Now's the time to find a better way to schedule and save 15% for the first year. We'd love to show you the next big thing in camp. Visit camptivities.com to set up a time to chat. Let us help you get away from your desk and back out to camp.
I have two little notes. And Kim, you had said before we got started that you had a lot of stuff prepared for this. So I want to make sure we don't lose that opportunity to get that from your brain. I have two little things that I just wrote down from things you said along the way, etc. Oh, all your staff handbooks, your parent handbooks, all of that stuff should be written in a font that's built for people who have dyslexia.
Yes.
They're free. They're in Google Docs. It's easy to do. The one that sort of looks, if you're really into the design and look of it, it's called Lexend. And the one I use on most of my internal documents, I'm starting to push it into my presentations for people listening who do training or speak at conferences or in front of staff doing training. I've made all my fonts now dyslexia design fonts. Atkinson Hyperlegible is another one that's free. So make it so that it's easier to read in lots of different ways. Make the information that you present. Everybody should deeply absorb the book Writing for Busy Readers by Todd Rogers. It's been a tool of the week for me. It's been a big theme for me this year because of the difference that we have noticed in how parents understand camp when they get there, because the way we change the way we write about it, you should be doing the same for your staff. So that's fonts and reading. The other thing that I wanted to catch, because I think it's so brilliant, and it's really related to something Kim was talking about really early, but Camp Waro puts out this pre-interview guide. And if you're not watching on YouTube, this is like a half-sheet guide to what camp is like, what the process is going to be for you, the timeline, who you're going to be interviewed by. They put it out as a PDF, but if there's enough space between getting the first notice, and I'm with you, Kim, we should make that first contact super easy and build up to all of the exchange of important information. But between first contact and an interview, if they have time, they mail them one. And if not, then they send them the PDF of it.
Is that publicly available? Like, does Waro, is that?
I don't know. I was thinking as we were talking, I should have just had Gab on today to tell us what they still do now. It's if you look through, if they haven't moved, there's older ones available on camphacker.tv. If you just search for pre-interview guide, there'll be links to the old ones if they're still available on their website. I've linked it several different times from different versions of it. The other Waro thing that I want to catch is Waro, because of that weird experience of being new in a place where people are just so excited to be with other people, is that you're walking into the middle of the screaming, hugging, laughing, so great to be here with you, and you're not part of that, is incredibly hard. And so Waro's intentionally done this with staff and campers, where they bring in returners early and then get all the screaming and hugging out of the way, and they sit them down and say, look, these new people don't know this place. You have to be thoughtful. Every one of you's job is to make all the new ones feel welcome, feel like they know the place around without overwhelming them. But that pre-exposure, get it all out of your system, front load, then the new people arrive. And that has been successful for them for years.
When I actually
love
got to
that.
do, there was a camp in Georgia who asked me to do some training, and they do the same thing. They bring in their returning staff ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then we created a session called the last summer syndrome. So
Yeah.
you have like, well, last summer, Chris, remember we did this, and last
Yeah.
summer when this happened, Travis, wasn't that awesome? And so we want to quickly change from last summer to this summer, because then when the staff this year have the shared experiences, then they have things that they can talk about together. So it's not being exclusive of people who weren't at camp before. So I love that. And one of the things that I challenged the returning staff to do is I said, okay, your job, like I'm going to empower you to come up with how you want to welcome the staff who are coming in tomorrow, the new people, the first who are coming to camp for the very first time, and put them in groups, and they get to decide like what that's going to look like. And they came up with things like, well, we're going to meet them at their cars, or we're going to help them get their stuff out of the car, unpack, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. But because they had the buy-in that you were talking about, Chris, like they had ownership of it, they had buy-in. And I've also seen camps do that with campers. Well, they'll pull especially the second year campers aside, because they're the closest to having been a first year camper. And so then they'll empower that group of campers to like, what can we do to welcome these, new people to our camp community that was helpful for you? Like, how do you get to do this? Like, this is your turn to be the welcoming committee kind of thing. So, yeah, I love it.
One more thing. I'm really obsessed with that Woro pre. I think that's something that I'm going to think about this for us, but like so many questions, we get so many initial questions about what is the job? Like, what do I expect? Like, if we just put that up, there's no trade secrets in there. Like, this is what the first day looks like. This is what the middle of the week looks like. This is what the end of the week looks like. This is what the weekend looks like. I just think that would really, it would answer a lot of questions for people who this is not the right thing for, but also I think would intrigue a lot of people who before, like, it was just kind of opaque what's going on there, what the job entails. And also to that point, like you both said, like, it might even be worth it, like asking current staff about something awesome that happened last year. And then you put that in there. So when you're talking about it, when the new people arrive, they're like, oh, right. Tell me more about that thing. I'm just trying to figure out ways to include people on like a rolling basis, as opposed to having being like, well, once you get here, you'll fully understand. Or once you have your second interview, you'll fully understand. I don't know why we're gatekeeping all that understanding. Tell people exactly what the deal is, the ups and the downs, how much work it is and how much fun it is. This has been really helpful to me. I don't care if the listeners learned anything. I'm changing everything about the way that we do camp. So this was great. This was great for me personally. If you're listening, good luck.
Well, there's so much more we could talk about. My mind is spinning, but
Yeah,
we just,
you know what this means, Kim? You've just come back.
Hey, we can do it.
Yeah,
Part two.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Kim, do you have one more final thing or stuff you've been saving up to put a pin in this for this discussion?
I guess, Chris, when you were saying, like, one of the things that we intentionally did, I was thinking about just even on the initial group chat when we got everybody together, is when we did introductions, we did not include how many years you'd been at camp on that, just to give people a chance, so that it kind of put everybody on an even playing field. And then, of course, later they figure out who that is, but initially we're just learning about who these awesome people are.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you. I'll talk to Gab and see if I can get permission to share an updated version of that. Also want to shout out Laura Hall from Camp St. Charles, who has heard me mention it enough times that she just went and did it and sent me a copy of their pre-interview guide. So it's not just Woro, the effect is spreading. So I'll try to get some permission to share those with everybody. But thank you. This is a very exciting conversation. I'm grateful.
I love this.
There's another great resource. I was thinking, Travis, you need a budget. They do a great job of like helping of how they lay out their, like, what it means to work at this place or what it means to be part of the community. Yeah. It's really
okay. I'll put that on my list to put in the show notes too. That's great. Somebody else I saw, a tech company, like a medium-sized tech company like them, that had another great onboarding thing. Okay. I'll make notes to myself, not on the show. So thank you. This was really great. I really appreciate it. What I want to do now is move us on to our tool of the week.
Tool of the week.
If you are a big Kimspiration fan and are coming to the show because you love Kim but haven't heard it before, our tool of the week on CampHacker is a tool that you can use to become a better camp director. They are very wide-ranging if you ever go back and search through our tools of the week. Very different price range that go from free up to $80,000. And they're all over the place, but they're things that we've been filing away. Like, we need to tell our camp friends about this. And Chris, I want to start with you because yours is, I think, really thoughtful and thoughtful, intentional, etc.
Love it. I love this. Okay, so before I recommend this, I need you all to know that I do not like poetry. I never liked it. Other than a limerick, yeah, I'm basic. Other than a limerick, I'm just not interested. But I was helping clean a friend's apartment, and I found this book on his shelf. It's called I Wrote This for You. Please find this. So naturally, the book was speaking to me. I pick it up, and the back says, I wrote this for you and only you. Everyone else who reads it doesn't get it. They may think they get it, but they don't. Intrigued. So I read it from cover to cover. It's a book of poetry. It's poems about love and loss and life. And I found it deeply affecting and deeply moving because the container set it up as, this is for you. You need to read this, Chris Hudson, right now. So it spoke to my inner narcissism. But on top of that, it's beautiful. And it has been really giving me life these past 2 weeks. I keep it by my bedstand. And before I go to bed, I read like 2 or 3 poems, and I go to bed with a smile on my face. So I want that for you. So again, the name of the book, it's I Wrote This for You by Ian S. Thomas. He's got a couple of versions of it because once he figured out this was a hit, he kept pumping out more poems. They're all good. That's what I'm going to say. So check it out. And remember, when you buy it, it's specifically for you. I read it. I don't get it, but it's for you. So you should get it and read it because he wrote it for you.
Very good.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you very
cool.
much. Kim, what's yours?
So I also have a book, but I feel like in the fall, like this time of year, more people have time to read, and you're sort of, as you're traveling, going to different recruiting events and things like that, you stuff a book in your bag, right? And so I'm going to recommend How to Work with Complicated People by Ryan Leake. And there's a book. This is what I'm showing for those of you who are watching on YouTube. This is actually more of a workbook. So I find both of them extremely helpful. If you want the longer version, you can read the book. If you want the shorter version plus some exercises that you can do, go for the workbook. But one of the takeaways that I got from that was just thinking about, he uses the term, he says, we're on the same planet, we're just different worlds. And so a couple questions that he uses that I really just think about, like for co-counselors, when you're dealing with parents, when you're, have a challenging camper, a complicated, and really we're all complicated, right? The question is, what's it like to be on the other side of me? So like thinking about like Travis, if you and I are having a conversation, I'd be thinking to myself, like, what's it like for Travis to be on the other side of me? Like, like, what is that like for him, right? And what's my role in this? Like, if there's a conflict or if there's a struggle or, we're sort of butting heads on something. And then like, Chris, if I was talking to you, I'd also be thinking about, well, what's it like for Chris? Like, what's it like for him to be in his shoes? And then what brings us together, right? So just those 4 simple questions: what it's like to be on the other side of me, what's my role in this, what's it like to be you, and what brings us together. I find I just come back to those over and over again. So again, the book is How to Work with Complicated People by Ryan Leake.
Love that.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Kim.
Got
I have a YouTube video, a guy I've just discovered recently and following more. He is a person who does systems for people and employees, and from a leadership perspective. His name is Andy Pulane, and he has a whole bunch of videos and a good newsletter. The one I liked was called Simple Tricks for Defensive Calendaring to Take Back Control of Your Time. So it's for you're in a group that people can see your calendar and can put themselves in their calendar, or it's also for creating space for you to do real work where you can have the time to get into a flow and do that so that you're blocking out the space to do that. I do this all the time. I know that I can't get a lot of thoughtful work done on days that I have Zoom calls. So I just pack all my Zoom calls into two or three afternoons a week. So the rest of the time I have the opportunity, it doesn't always work, but the opportunity to get into some deeper work because of that. So I thought this was really great. All of these tools you can find on camphacker.tv/podcast. And we have the great history of all of the things that have been suggested by all of our guests over time. So it's all available there. I want to take a sec before I say goodbye to Kim to highlight another Go Camp Pro show. The Day Camp Pod with Andy, Sam, and Jordana is doing some really great work. They're out of the gate really quickly this year and have some amazing episodes. So I would encourage you in your podcast app where you're listening to us to search for the Day Camp Pod. And even if you're not a day camp director, there's valuable stuff in there. And so you can check out all of that stuff in your podcast apps or on our YouTube channel, the Day Camp Pod. Kim, thank you.
Thank you both. What a treat on a
This was
Friday
fun.
morning.
This was great.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
A really good conversation. If people want to get in touch with you, Kim, how can they follow up?
They can go to my website, kimaycock.com. And for some Kimspiration on a regular basis on Instagram, it's Kim_Aycock, AYCOCK_.
It's great. And I'm inspired to say this because Kim is here, but it applies to both of my co-hosts. Both of these folks do amazing staff trainings and have great reviews from people I've talked to who said, so jazzed by what Kim has done. And we have done trainings with Kim before. It's amazing to watch her work. And I know from having worked on sessions and things with Chris that he's too. Now is the time to reach out to these two to start booking for trainings in the spring. Do not wait until May or March and say, I really need to bring in Kim or I need Chris. So both of these people, you can find their information at camphacker.tv/podcast. Chris, where else can they get in touch?
You can ask your parents because I'm really good with parents. They love me. And that doesn't work. You can always go to my website, planetchris.net. You can email me, planetchris@gmail.com. And if you want to see what my life is like, you can go to @planetchris1 on Instagram, where I post infrequently.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you both for being here in an amazing discussion. If you have suggestions for the show, a lot of the shows we do are based on things where people reach out to us and say, why don't you talk about this? You can reach me at travis@gocamp.pro. Chris, I want to thank the sponsors of this week's episode, as well as our editor. We want to thank the folks we mentioned at the beginning of the show, but we want to give a special thanks to Ryan, who does our editing, Ryan Vandertorn, and also the man that makes all of this stuff happen so we can keep giving you shows every year. We want to thank the executive producer of podcasting, Matt Wilfred. Thanks for the evening, friends.
The Camp Hacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening. Camp Hacker, bringing your world into focus.